It is my honor to be with you and share this beautiful gathering of hearts and minds. Whether you're here with us in Vancouver or turning in virtually from anywhere around the world, I'm beyond thrilled that you've said yes to being here. I'm Robin Ducharme, and I'll be your host all weekend. Thank you. I am the host of the Let's Talk Love podcast, Ask the Expert series on Instagram every week, and the founder of Real Love Ready. And we are going to be on a journey together this weekend. As we gather for In Bloom, we honor with deep respect the gift of gathering on the unceded territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. Since time immemorial, this land, water, and all living beings have been cared for by these peoples. Their historic and current care and love has created the ability for us to gather in this beautiful place. As we come together to learn and grow, may we carry a shared commitment to honor the history of this land, the people who have tended to it for generations, and our collective responsibility to create a more loving, compassionate world. The very fact that you have shown up here today speaks volumes. It says you are committed to your growth, to your relationships, and to living your best, most connected life. Because here's what I believe. There's nothing more important in our lives than our relationships. They are the heartbeat of everything. How we love, how we lead, and how we live. This is the place to be if you're ready to grow, connect, and dive deep into what makes relationships not just survive, but thrive. By the end of this weekend, I hope you walk away with new perspectives, fresh tools, and real skills to transform the way you show up in your relationships, starting with the one you have with yourself. Because love is not just a feeling, it's not just something we fall into, it's something we build, it's something we practice, and it's something we grow. We can grow. And that's why I've invited some of the most brilliant minds, the most open-hearted storytellers, and the most inspiring relationship experts to join us, to help us crack open the secrets to deeper connection, intimacy, and joy. It is my absolute honor and joy to welcome our first two speakers and teachers of the In Bloom Summit, two extraordinary people who I also happen to be married to each other, Silvy Khoucasian and Bryan Reeves. Silvy and Bryan are both cherished gifts of our Let's Talk Love podcast and Ask the Expert series. And it's such a gift to have them here tonight to open our weekend together. Personally, I've had the privilege of working with Silvy one-on-one. I was so moved by her presence and insight that I signed up for her one-on-one relationship coaching. We worked together for months, and let me tell you, she helped me uncover some of my blind spots and deep vulnerabilities I didn't even know I had. The impact of our work together has rippled through all of my relationships. Thank you, Silvy. I really mean that. It's heavy-duty work, but it's worth it, really. Silvy's a renowned expert in intimate relationships and boundaries with a master's degree in psychology, marriage and family therapy. She helps people express themselves with clarity, deepen emotional intimacy, and feel empowered in their relationship choices. Her approach blends psychology and spirituality to help people cultivate the kinds of connections that feel reciprocal, honest, and nourishing. Bryan is a former U.S. Air Force captain turned internationally renowned relationship coach and author. He brings a powerful blend of grounded wisdom and emotional insight to his work. His viral blogs have been read by over 50 million people around the world, and his book, Choose Her Every Day or Leave Her, has touched many lives with its raw guidance on intimacy, emotional maturity, and masculine-feminine polarity. Together, Silvy and Bryan have spent thousands of hours in the trenches, guiding individuals and couples through some of the most challenging, complex terrain of love. And they've spent nearly a decade doing this work, not only professionally, but personally in their own evolving partnership. Tonight, they'll be sharing their insights on a theme that touches every relationship, embracing our differences to create deeper love. You'll walk away with practical tools for navigating challenges, staying connected when things get tough, and building relationships that are resilient, respectful, and real. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Silvy and Bryan.
Test, test, 30's on? Okay.
First off, high five.
High five.
We made it.
We made it.
We're here. Wow.
Deep breath. Ooh. First of all, Robin, thank you so much for this beautiful opportunity. Your whole team, I mean, you guys have been preparing for a year for this. We have just been so excited and counting down the days. Bryan has been practicing a particular accent that he can't wait to share with you guys very soon.
I'm gonna nail it.
He's gonna nail it.
Yeah, what a beautiful event. We've been just treated so well. I mean, it's just so beautifully put together. Shout out to the musician. What's your name? What's his name? What's your name? Antonio. Nice touch. Beautiful, man. Beautiful voice, beautiful tune. So thank you for that. Okay. We're going to, we want to dance with you, engage with you throughout. Oh, she loves that, the dance. The dancing lady loves the word dance. And one thing, there are mics that are here. Where are the microphones, the running mics? Some things we're going to just do quick, and I'll just repeat what is said. Right? So for example, right now, I just want to hear, what is the best relationship advice you've ever gotten? Right there. What? Just shout it out. I'll repeat it so people can hear.
Well, this is when I was young, so my dad said to me, boys are like buses. You get off of one and you get on the next.
Boys are like buses. You get off of one and you get on the next. That was her father, by the way. Okay. All right. Yeah. Interesting. The best. That was the best she ever got. Okay. Over here.
That you can make your own rules with your relationship.
You can make your own rules. Great, thank you. One more. Yes, ma'am.
It doesn't have to be hard.
It doesn't have to be hard. Okay. A lot of layers to that one. I love that. What's the worst? Yeah, he got it. There it is. Just landed. No. What is the worst relationship advice you've ever gotten? Throw a couple out. Yes.
Don't go to bed mad, stay up and fight.
Don't go to bed mad. I love that as the worst, potentially. Yeah, I love that. Stay up and fight instead. Great. Worst. A couple more. Yes.
Relationship is the worst ship that ever sailed.
Relationship is the worst
Ship that ever sailed.
ship that ever sailed. Ooh. Yeah, that is horrible relationship advice. My God. One more, just one more.
Stay together for the kids.
Oh, stay together for the kids. As a child of divorce, I co-sign that as some of the worst relationship advice. Yeah. So, I want to share to start our talk today, just a quick story about, I don't know if it's the best relationship advice we ever got, but certainly has stuck with me, and it set the tone for our what we're going to talk about today. Silvy and I were in Ireland. We got engaged at the Cliffs of Moher on the west coast of Ireland. And on our last night there, we spent the evening with this just character of an Irishman in his backyard barn, I guess. And anyway, at one point he asks us, here comes the accent. At one point he asks us, do you want to know what the secret to a good and healthy and lasting marriage is? And we said, of course. It's not bad, right? And he said, marriage is a power struggle. And the moment one of you wins, the marriage is over. Marriage is a power struggle. And the moment one of you wins, the marriage is over.
So, we're going to take you on a little bit of a journey and share some of our individual stories and our relationship stories and some of the lessons we've learned through our own transformational fires of intimate relationship, as they are transformational fires. And we're also going to share some of the most common differences we've seen in couples, in intimate relationships. And if you're not in intimate relationships, you can definitely apply whatever we're going to be speaking about towards close friendships or anybody that you're in close relationship with. And we're going to definitely have space at the end for questions, so please save your questions for the end, and we're going to be bringing you on the journey with us. And buckle up.
Ooh, okay. How you feeling?
Nervous, but excited.
Yeah.
Nervited.
So we just want to start a little bit with our personal stories. I am a former United States Air Force captain. Spent, from 17 to 26, I was in the Air Force. Since then, I'm 50 now, so that was a minute ago. I've been a relationship coach for the last 13, 14 years, a professional life coach and relationship coach. The last 5 years, I've really focused on working with men. Men really struggle to find support in the world in a way that really lands for men. I certainly experienced that. And so that's what I've been really focusing on for the last 5 years, running men's groups, professional men's groups, 6 months, year-long experiences for men. It's magic when men get together and in trustable spaces. But beyond that, what I want you to know about my story is that I was raised by women. 2 moms, 3 sisters. My moms were married to my fathers, my dad and my stepdad. They weren't married to each other. And it was my moms that really held the world together. My dad just kind of seemed like they were good men, but just seemed like they were just holding on for dear life, while my moms held my world together. So I grew up with a really healthy respect for girls, for women. And I remember even at 17 thinking, man, why aren't there more women in power? Because my mom is amazing. She's a humanitarian. She's in the Women's Hall of Fame in Maryland for her humanitarian work. It's just like, damn, women are amazing, right? So I grew up respecting women, knowing how to be safe as a man around women. And in the military, I got a master's degree in human relations. I didn't enjoy what I was doing in the military. I was very disconnected from my body, couldn't feel my emotions, I couldn't laugh, I couldn't cry. And so I wanted to do something else with my life, and I studied human relations from University of Oklahoma. I got a master's degree. I want you to hold on to that. Master's degree in human relations. You feeling me? And here's why I want you to hold on to that. Because I sucked at relationships, even with a master's degree in human relations. I had no idea what women wanted from me, and honestly, I didn't really know what I wanted from them either, right? And that's when I got out of the military at 26. My misadventures with women would begin, and I was married in France. I met a woman. When I got out of the military, I just went traveling I just was so lost. And I remember I met a woman in France, and I married her very quickly because I couldn't feel anything. There was a part of my body was like, no, but I couldn't feel that part. Or it was just easy to, shut up. And that turned into what I call a catastrophe spectaculaire. Where are my French people? Anyone knows that? Where are my French speakers? Yeah. It was a spectacular catastrophe. And we were together 8 months. And on the last day we were together, she said something to me that I knew I can't stay. You guys want to know what she said? She said, "Get out." And I was like, that is a line too far. You cannot tell me to get out and expect me to stay. So I knew nothing of boundaries, so she did me a favor. Looking back, I'm going to wrap up my story, and Sylvie's going to share her story. But looking back, like a lot of men, I didn't have any male role models growing up. Not men that I really could look up to. And I was caught between these 2 paradigms of man. On the one hand, the impotent, kind of weak, pushover, nice guy. You can just put your hand right through him, hard to respect. He's there, but I can't feel him. And on the other, had the macho, dominating tyrant, uses fear to control. Those were my, when we talk about power, we're talking about power struggles today. Those were my choices. Either I give up power and just be the nice guy, or I take power and be that guy. I was paralyzed. Naturally that followed me into my relationships with women. It's why they were disastrous for decades, because I was caught between those two, those two paradigms of really which is a false choice. And I'll pause there.
Hello, I'm Silvy again, and my story begins in Saudi Arabia, where I was born. And I immigrated to the United States when I was 4 years old with my parents and sister, leaving behind our entire extended family network and support system, and really rebuilding a life in the United States. And my immigration story is a really big part of my journey because I have pretty much throughout my life straddled two radically different cultural experiences. And I witnessed my parents go through a lot as a child, a lot of unresolved grief. Imagine just leaving your whole world and starting all over again with no support. And they were some of the most generous, supportive, welcoming, kind people that sacrificed so much for me and my sister to have an opportunity for a different life. And in so many ways, I'm so grateful for what my parents sacrificed, and in so many other ways, there was a lot of struggle when we were younger. I grew up in an Armenian cultural background, so I experienced a lot of toxic Armenian patriarchal patterns of power and control and repression, a lot of explosions and even physical violence when I was young. And so I grew up in Hollywood, Los Angeles, Hollywood with a capital H. Naturally, I got drawn to the world of acting, and when I was in my early 20s, I pursued a field of work that just really allowed me to connect to parts of myself that were really repressed as a child. I don't have a lot of memories of my childhood. So much of it I was dissociated from. And when I went into the field of acting, I was able to really integrate parts of myself. I was able to feel emotions I had never felt before. I was able to play these characters that just had so much range: jealousy, anger, fear, sadness, terror, and it was exhilarating for me. Until it wasn't. I remember at 26 years old, I was invited to this transformational workshop experience where I would basically get to look at all of my childhood experience and really start to piece together all those disowned parts of myself. And I had to make a choice. There was a workshop happening, and there was an acting role that I had just booked. I had just booked CSI New York. Anybody here, CSI New York people? One of the CSIs. I had just booked this huge role that I had been waiting years for, but it happened to be on the same weekend of this transformational workshop. And so it was one of those pivotal moments in my life journey where I knew I had to make a choice. And my logical brain was like, of course you're gonna take this role. You've worked so hard to get here. But there was another part of me that just knew I had to focus on my healing journey, and my mental health was at stake. And I remember I was starting to get roles where it was just starting to touch a little bit too close to home, where it was really touching my shame and my trauma. And this was a space where I got to really work through those pieces of myself. And my manager, of course, fired me, and she thought I was leaving my career to join a cult, which it kind of was a cult, but it was also one of the most healing experiences for me. I know anybody else here been in a cult?
Come on. Cult survivors here,
Cult
come
survivors.
on, it's okay. You haven't lived until you've been in a cult, right? Let's be honest.
I know there might be a support group this weekend for cult survivors. Maybe, Robin, I don't know if that's on the agenda, maybe not. But that experience is really what led me to reconnect to my own sense of self and feel just connected to me for the first time in my life. I was 26.
Okay, so we want to set the stage for, we met in 2015. We want to set the stage for that. But first I want to ask a question. Esther Perel. Anybody ever heard of Esther Perel? Robin, you should really book her at this conference. I know. It's going to be the joke I'm going to make all weekend. Just get ready for it. She asked an amazing question. Were you raised for autonomy or loyalty? Before, without explaining that, just real quick, show of hands, do you immediately know whether you were raised, let's say, autonomy? I'm raising my hand for autonomy. So we got some autonomy, okay? Were you raised for loyalty? Wow, okay, interesting. Again, we're gonna unpack a little bit more of our story, and hopefully you can kind of find something of your own in our story. So, setting the table, in the years before I met Silvy, I had been studying with just the most amazing relationship teachers. I had decided at 36, I'm done sucking at love, right? I'm done. I got to learn the secrets that shouldn't be secrets. It's time. And I was studying with teachers like Michaela Boehm and David Data, even Pat Allen, who wrote the book Getting to I Do. She's a firecracker of a 90-year-old woman in LA doing these things. Anyway, I was Allison Armstrong. I was studying with spiritual teachers like Byron Katie, Neil Donald Walsh, Marianne Williamson. Spirituality and relationship it was all coming together for me. And I was writing blogs about it. My blogs were being read by millions of people around the world. I had this shit figured out. You hear me? I had it figured out. I'm the relationship guy. I know how to do relationship. I'm gonna crush it. I was so ready to meet my woman. I'm 40, 41. I got this. And little did I know, I was so fucking clueless. Still, I was relationally clueless, despite having some knowledge.
And before I met Bryan, I was also working with an amazing relationship coach, and I went on about 300 dates in about a 2-year period. I was the one and doneer. Damona, I'm gonna need some coaching from you after this, And I just could not get past that first date experience. I was on the surface really ready and excited to meet my partner and commit, but I was also so terrified of feeling trapped and getting pulled into just patriarchal patterns of domination, control, and feeling powerless.
So there you go. Terrified, clueless. Let's dance, shall we? There we are, the dance. I got you. I see you. 30 days after we met, and our meeting was really magic, but we'll save that story for another time. But 30 days after we met, I took Silvy to a Halloween party. Wanderlust Studios in Los Angeles. Anyone know the Wanderlust? That they're now out of business now. Same person that likes CSI, New York. Got you. My friend was the program's director there, and I was just so excited. I'd met this amazing woman. I want to bring her, meet my friends, bring her to this event, this function. We put on our costumes. I don't even remember what it was. But what happened when we walked in? What do you remember?
Well, I remember us walking in, holding hands. I was ready to connect all night and basically be, shoulder to shoulder. But as soon as we walked in, I remember our hands quickly dropping, and I didn't see him for the rest of the night. So he disappeared in my memory.
Right. That's not exactly how I remember it. But what I do remember is at some point, I am on the balcony, I guess outdoors with my friends. I don't know where she is. Her sister and her sister's boyfriend were there, and I saw them with them. I was like, she's fine. She's good. Was that hog in high heaven, that phrase? I'm so good. I got my woman here somewhere. She's somewhere, I'm here with my homies. Oh, man, life is good. I grew up in a family system where my dad left when I was 4. I still felt connected to him even though he wasn't around. That was familiar to me, to feel connected to someone who wasn't still in the room. In many ways, latchkey child coming home alone after school, mom's off at work. It was just normal, right? And I was also recovering from codependency, you could say. The neediness of this, in my experiencing of it is she doesn't need me, I don't need her, but she's here, we're good. I went to look for her, found her on a stairwell. What was going on for you?
That was our first breakdown, if you didn't already anticipate that. That was our first breakdown, and also just realization of the different ways in which we related in these public setting places. I grew up, loyalty, family unit was very tight. Again, just growing up with the four of us, we did everything together, and we really relied on each other a lot. So when I went with Bryan, I really expected us to not necessarily be glued to the hip, but at least having multiple points of connection throughout the night. And I was bawling my eyes out on the corner of a stairwell at the end of the night, and I just remember feeling a profound feeling of abandonment. And so I also have some anxious attachment tendencies that started to show up pretty early on in our dynamic. And this was a huge gap for us that we had to learn to navigate.
Yeah, and my avoidant tendencies, I don't know that they were really rearing their head just yet, because we got through that really
did.
well.
Yeah.
That moment. Again, we're only 30 days in. It's easy. Remember, I got this. No, I didn't. I didn't have anything. This was just the beginning of the next few years of trying to navigate these very painful differences between us. But we'll just pause there for a moment. I want to hear from you in the audience. What's coming up for you? What are you, in this question, autonomy versus loyalty, what are you already seeing? Yeah, let's get the mic run around. Anybody care to share something courageous? Yes. Oh, just wait for the mic.
Thank you. Like what comes to my mind when you talk about autonomy versus loyalty, autonomy is avoidant, and loyalty is attached, anxiously attached. That's what comes to my mind, which is I'm just like you, anxiously attached. So for me, this is unacceptable. The party, I would be like, okay, just lose my number.
Did you get a little bit angry when you heard that I
Yeah.
did the thing?
Yes.
Yeah, I understand. That's okay. I get it. Totally get it. Thank you.
Yeah, for me, it just makes me realize that I grew up in a system where men were autonomous and women were loyal. And so I would be you at that party, and I would think that this feels really good for everybody. And it's good perspective there.
Yeah, interesting. Thank you. Anybody else?
I'm running.
One here, and then, yeah.
So this is totally confusing for me because I am autonomous and both loyal, but I connect with the loyalty so very much, and unlike Irina over there, I want to just like bring it to the basic human level of not like thinking of attachment, but like the abandonment, being abandoned. Here I came with this man, and even though I had someone there, he was my safety, and he left me. Yeah, that's eye-opening for me. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah. Well, I think it's so telling. I mean, that's what, again, we're going to explore tonight more of these kind of these subtle, they're massive, but they arise in these just tiny little moments. You know, it's interesting, like the story that you tell, and the story I was telling is her sister's here. They're good. Like the perception was like everything. So it's fascinating. And by the way, I think it was really more my mom that was the autonomous one, especially with my stepfather. He was way more the loyalty one. So it's like there's no one thing fits everybody, right? Yeah.
So some other common differences we want to highlight that we've seen, of course, in our own relationship, but in the combined work that we've experienced over the last 15 years with couples. And we want to definitely hear your experience around these gaps as well. So the independent-minded versus communal-minded. I come from a very communal culture. Bryan comes from a much more independent culture.
Hyper-independent.
Yeah. Differences in intimacy desires, sexual desires, libido styles, money differences. Money is one of the most common sources of struggle for couples, how you make it, how you manage it, even your mindset around it, right? Some people might have more of a scarcity mindset, someone might have a more abundant mindset, and this isn't about making either one right or wrong, but it's simply about noticing the conditioning in which we grew up with, the culture, the systems, not just, the ethnic background we come from, but all the wider macro and micro systems that really shape how we view these core differences. Parenting styles. How many parents in here? Lots of parents. Do you and the person that you had a child with feel the same way about how you raise a child?
How about pet parents?
Pet parents.
Any pet parents that have the same kind of deal? Yep.
Yeah, that's a big one. Processing pacing. This is kind of one that is in the invisible realm. Different processing styles. Bryan processes things at like lightning speed, and I need a lot more time. I'm much slower in my pacing. I have to sit through things and really make sense of things. If you are going through conflict, for example, there's one person that might want to talk through things right away, and there's another person that just needs more time. They're like, I just need at night, let me just sleep on it and then I'll be fine. But those differences can really create power struggles when you're in the thick of things. Another interesting one that I love to focus on in my coaching work is perceptions around faithfulness, fidelity, what one partner might see as flirting, the other person sees as friendliness. Oh my goodness, how many sessions have you had just on that, right?
Oh yeah, just in the age of social media, liking a photo for one person is just a thought and it's gone. For another person, it's betrayal.
Traveling style differences. That might be the biggest one yet.
What was that about?
Can we hear it?
I heard something. I heard a disturbance over here.
I'm a city girl. I love to travel and just be in my cozy hotel. I could be there all week. I want to go to the same cafe every day and just plop myself, just land. He wants to take me to a remote island with no hospitals around.
Where can we go in those mountains where there's nobody for hours? Let's go. And I want you with me.
And that's my nightmare, right? It's my absolute nightmare terror. And we've had to navigate that.
How many of y'all can relate to that? The sort of just like, oh my gosh.
So interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to add anything to that? Just let's focus on the traveling differences. I feel like that one
we could
really.
do the rest of the session just on that. Well, again, we're highlighting these differences that, the way you load the dishwasher. Anyone got that one? Oh my God. Yeah, right?
What are some other differences you guys have had to hold? What are some gaps that you've had to really sit with in your experience? This can be friendship as well. It doesn't have to be romantic relationship. We'd love to hear some of what your thoughts are.
Driving a car.
Yes.
Can I get my people who own the highways in here? They're mine. They belong to me. And you. Great.
Anybody else? Hands up. Seeing lots of hands. Can we grab the mics?
Yeah. Like your social life, like how much you guys go out together, go out alone, if you accept invitations, that's a big one.
That's a huge one.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Babe, when we first met, what was our going out?
Oh my God. He wanted to be the last one to leave, and I wanted to be the first one to leave.
Yeah, that's a fact.
Right there?
How you choose to spend your money, what your values, where your values lie.
Huge.
That's a big one.
Thank you. That's huge. Yeah.
Right next to her.
Communication.
Say a little bit more.
Well, just styles of communication.
That's huge. Yeah. I grew up in the Middle East where, Armenian language is very poetic, metaphor. It's very metaphor and we just milk it. It's so yummy and it's there's an episode on Conan O'Brien where he goes to Armenia, and there's a saying called "Merne marminit vra," which means I want to die on your body.
It's my favorite.
It's an expression of love. I know my Iranians over here understand me. Do you guys get it? There's a poeticness in the way that we speak, and we're also very expressive emotionally. But we can also be a little non-direct. Right? There's a lot of stuff going on here.
Yeah, I call it the Khoucasian communication. It's very excited. It's like Italian, I guess. We all know that one.
Yes.
But the thing is, when I try to do it, it doesn't work. I don't get away with it. I get the smackdown. I still need to learn it. You teach me. I'll learn it one of these days.
But the American, Western communication style is much more non-direct. It is much more direct. And I would also say, even just facial cue recognition, that was huge for me. Here I am working as a therapist, a relationship coach, having a lot of experience in relationships, but I couldn't read my husband's facial cues. I was like, are you disgusted at me? He's like, what? That is the furthest thing from what I'm feeling, but I would constantly misread his face because of our cultural differences. And let me tell you, I was humbled, and I'm still humbled. I have to check in with him constantly about what my assumption is so that I'm not misreading him. That must have been hard for you.
It was very challenging, often.
Yeah.
To be projected upon something that I'm not experiencing. Right? Anyone ever been through that? Projected upon something you're not experiencing? Every hand should go up in here. Come on, you all are not participating if you're not raising your hand to that question. Thank you, Sean Galanos. So, again, we're highlighting. There's so many. The tiniest little things can turn into power struggles that take a couple down. I mean, just when I've worked with over time, and you and I, Silvy, we've had to figure out how to manage going to bed at night. Ooh, going to bed at night. One of you, maybe it's timing. One wants to go to bed at midnight. The other wants to go to bed at 10. Or it's also you go to bed at the same time. One of you wants to keep the light on to keep connecting. And the other's like, I'm done. Day's over.
Who's that person?
It's you, babe. It's 100%. We can let them guess. I think they're figuring it out. So tiniest little things can, when we don't know how to navigate these differences, and a lot of our differences aren't just that tiny. They can be massive. So 2 years into our relationship, fast forward. Go ahead. Say.
And just the importance of recognizing that there are some gaps, some differences that can be deal breakers, right? And that's the exploration during the relational journey of sorting through whether it is a gap that you can navigate or if this is just something that's just not aligned. And that's a hard journey to sort through.
Yeah. So 2 years, thank you. That's important to acknowledge. 2 years into our relationship, our differences are overwhelming us. And it's not like what Silvy just pointed out. They're not black and white deal breakers. Like one of us wants a kid, the other doesn't. One of us wants to live in the city, the other doesn't. We probably should have talked about that a lot more at the beginning of our relationship, but we're figuring it out. We're finding our way with that one. But they weren't that black and white. But we were overwhelmed by our differences, and we were heading for the conclusion of our relationship. Get an amen? So I remember I had taken my car to get the tires changed in Simi Valley. It's the valley next to the valley we lived. It's not that important. But it was raining. At this time, it didn't rain that much in California, so it's also memorable. I'm driving home, and my heart is heavy because we have to break up. We can't stay together. It wouldn't be kind to stay together given what we're navigating. And Silvy and I had been reading the Course in Miracles. Anyone know the little Course in Miracles action? Yeah. And the Course in Miracles is this book. It's kind of like a New Age Bible of sorts. They have these lessons, daily lessons, 365 lessons, one for every day of the year. And in the first first 3 or 4 lessons, there's this one lesson that says, you're not angry or upset for the reason you think you are. I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically, you're not worried, angry, upset for the reasons you think you are. And Silvy and I had been studying these lessons. And so I'm driving home, the windshield wipers are, and I'm just driving in the rain. We have to break up, but that Course in Miracles lesson keeps telling me, you're never upset for the reason you think you are. Okay, I'm just gonna let that hold us for the moment. And
we had a therapy session booked with Dr. Stan Tacken that afternoon. Anybody know him? Yeah, he's amazing. We had our first 3-hour session with Stan Tacken.
Marathon
session. And it was quite an experience. We were on these like straddly chairs, and he was looking at us with his eyes just darting back and forth.
Have anyone done a session with Stan Tatkin? Like, anyone ever seen Battlestar Galactica? You know the Cylons? There's something about the way that, like, Stan, the pact, the way that his style of therapy is genius. Amazing. But his eyes were going, just darting back, like he's tracking us, watching our bodies, our body language. It was impressive.
Yeah.
And
at the end,
go ahead, you can tell that part.
Very, very last part of the therapy session, literally right before we were going to step out of the room, he said the exact words,
"You're never arguing for the reasons you think you are." So that message came to us twice that day. And that opened up a whole new possibility for us, right? To get beneath what I like to call the level of the complaint. And that was really the beginning of a new way of holding our differences, of exploring, what's really at the root, what's underneath all of these things, and how to navigate these differences. There's the Gottmans. Anyone ever heard of the Gottmans? You should really book them at the conference. And that one I'm serious about. 69%, you guys know that statistic? 69% of relationship differences, problems are unresolvable.
Life-changing.
Think about that. 70%. You're only going to solve 30% of the shit that bothers you.
It's both terrifying and comforting at the same time.
That's right? Exactly right. That's it. That's right. Terrifying and comforting. Well said. Take us away, babe.
So we want to offer you a couple of tools on navigating differences, holding differences to create and maintain connection. And the first biggest one, the big one that we want to offer you is that willingness to acknowledge that differences are there. Right? To be able to name them, to acknowledge them, and to grieve them. To grieve the disillusionment that happens when you're in a long-term relationship. There is so much disappointment and disillusionment and these implicit expectations that we bring into any relationship. And the willingness to face that grief. I think grief is not spoken to about enough. I know, Robin, you mentioned last year in the In Bloom at the end, you brought up grief, and I've been thinking about that. And we reserve grief for breakups and death and these other things, but we don't recognize the importance of the presence of honoring it in long-term relationships, right? And it's there. It's present.
It's one of the things they never tell you. You get into a relationship, and I'm a relationship guy. I always wanted to be in a relationship. I wanted that. But you get into a relationship, and then there's all this grief that may arise. All this, it's weird, because nobody talks about that. Can anybody relate to that? Yeah, And we could just spend the rest of the time talking about that. We're not going to do that. But there's, grief is such a, especially, just speaking as someone who identifies as a man, grief, I ain't got time for that. I got shit to do. Got problems to solve, right? We got a day to get on with. And yet, oh my goodness, I am working with men all the time that because we don't know how to grieve, we're stuck, contracted in our bodies, rigid, unable to move forward in relationship. Because we can't, we can't. And we check out in all kinds of ways. It's heartbreaking.
And we're coming off the tail end of a global pandemic still, and the amount of grief and transitions and change and loss that people have experienced in these last 5 years is truly monumental. And it comes up in my sessions all the time.
And there's sort of two things we want to say about grief here. One is there's just the normal grief of, what's that quote, babe? Did you read your quote? Say that. I think that's really important. That's the first thing we want to say about grief.
Oh, the words that I wrote. Yeah. May I grieve my expectations of you so that I can discover your love yet again. I wrote that quote years ago, and people really resonated with, because I think we all want to drop underneath the conditioning, those expectations, all of those things that can get in the way. But in order to do that, we do have to grieve. We can't escape that part, you know?
Exactly. I mean, just like the travel thing. I had to grieve her not wanting to go live with me in a remote cabin for a year in the northern wilds of the, the Arctic Pole. Like, really, I had to grieve that. And that's the first thing we want to say. That's just again, that 69%. We've got to learn how to grieve that, to let that, and mutually, to also not take it on. I mean, Silvy, it was really important for her to not take on my grief, that she's not going to travel the same way I do, and vice versa. I'm not going to travel the same way she does.
And tolerating that I was disappointed, that felt like I was disappointing him constantly in this, and just sitting with that, it was so uncomfortable for me.
And the other thing we want to say about grief is life is hard, right? The last 5 years have been gnarly for everybody, and some of us, keep going, right? Life is challenging. I'd say bad things happen, but unwanted things happen all the time. Silvy and I had the wedding of our dreams planned in Ireland for April 2020. Pandemic hits March 2020, right? Taken away from us. That just launched us into a season of loss. What we've been through, we counted with a therapist that we work with sometimes, 18 events in the last 5 years, that one or two of them could be devastating. I mean, we've been through infertility, found out we couldn't have a child together. We've done 3 cross-country moves, being uprooted. I lost my father. He's still alive. I became estranged from my father and my sister, and more. And how people grieve also. We grieve differently, right? We grieve differently, and being able to make space for different grieving journeys and processes is also something that we even a job change. One of you could be really excited, and the other is like, I have to be uprooted and lose everything. Right? So again, all of these are sources of power struggle, but when we know how to navigate them, we're going to give a couple more tools. They can be, what's the name of this talk? Embrace differences for deeper connection.
For deeper connection. Don't forget this part.
Oh yeah, it says insert joke here to lighten the mood. Got it. Okay. Sean, remind me to do that. Thanks. Okay. Got it.
So the second tool we want to talk about is the importance of creating agreements. 69% of things doesn't mean you just let things fall, right? Even planning this trip, Bryan and I have found a balance that works for us. We're going to spend a couple nights in the city, a couple nights in the countryside somewhere, but still near hospitals. Still can't get me all the way away from that. But just the importance of creating agreements where you can. What are your agreements around conflict? There's going to be certain things that are going to be really harmful to your relationship if you don't create agreements for those things. What are the agreements around parenting styles, right? Household responsibilities. What are some of the other agreements? Privacy. I'm much more private than Bryan is. Sometimes when he wants to write certain blogs, for example, he'll just check in with me first. Like, is this okay? Are you comfortable with this?
Which
right?
I didn't want to do at the beginning at all.
But he's got to, because boundaries.
Yeah, it was one of the things that we had to navigate at the beginning, a really painful, difficult, challenging difference. I like to, in my work with agreements, I like to say resentments die in the land of agreements. Look, I was just winging it for, I don't know, from the first time I went on a date with a girl, probably, 13 to I'm still winging it, let's be honest. We're all winging it to some degree, but we're all winging it, right? And this is an area a lot of us, and we want to ask you, want to hear from you, what areas of your life might be, or might you have made agreements that helped you navigate a difference, a difficult difference?
We'd love to hear from you guys on this one.
Sorry?
You by the mic?
Getting rid of gender roles.
Well, I want to hear this. Yep. Can you say that again for us?
I said getting rid of gender roles. So
Gender
basically,
roles.
we focus on strengths. Who can do it? Who's got the time to
Beautiful.
do it?
I love
Who's
that.
got the spoons to do it?
Exactly. I love
You
that.
don't. If I see the trash needs to be taken out, I'm not going to take it out still. But I'm just saying. But if I see it needs to be taken out because it's overflowing, I'm going to take it out. If you see that, if
Right.
he sees that the dishes need to be washed, he's going to do it. We're not doing things because you're male.
Right.
So we do what needs to be done.
I love that. Yeah.
And I think that's a really important note because we can get stuck in those very rigid gender patterns that doesn't always feel authentic. And if we don't actually explore that conditioning and feel into where we might want to partake in, we can really limit ourselves in a relationship, right?
It's funny. Early in our relationship, I don't know if it was early, but I remember there was a time where I thought, I'm going to do the gentlemanly thing, and when the waiter comes, I'm going to order for her. How'd that go over? Yeah, she did not appreciate that. Got it. Cool.
I want to hear more from you guys on this. What other agreements have you had to create, or would you want to create?
I think I have accepted somebody who's avoidant, and I respected that's the way he is, and I just have to respect that and kind of like make peace with it.
Okay.
As you speak to that, I'm aware one of the agreements that we had to make early in our relationship around communication. You're talking about communication styles. My goodness, I've heard over the years from really mostly women, excuse me, who are dating someone, typically a man, who can go days or weeks without communicating. And the feedback I get is, I don't like this, but what do I do? It's like, Silvy and I, early in our relationship, we had an agreement pretty quick that we were going to connect every day. I don't necessarily, she's going to tell you that I'm full of shit right now. I'm going to say, I don't really need that.
He needs it.
Yeah, she's probably right. But I believe, I'm more autonomous. I can do my thing. And we've had to navigate that agreement. We had to make that agreement. And Silvy was a stand for that very early in our relationship. I was traveling a lot. I was in New York. She was in LA, right? And I would call her at the end of the day, right? Check in at the end of the day. And at one point she said, that's not really working for me. What's going on? Are we okay? Are we...
Anxious attachment coming back up.
And I'm thinking, of course we're okay. Like, if we're not okay, you'll tell me, you'll call me, right? I didn't want to wake her up. Again, the stories we tell. I didn't want to wake her up. I think I'm doing the right, responsible thing. So she said, look, I really need to hear from you in the morning as well. Cool. I can do that. Next morning. Yo. You sleep all right? You good? Everything okay? What you doing today? All right, cool. All right, talk to you later. Click. How y'all think that went over? What's that?
Exactly.
Checked. That's exactly what I did. And how'd you like that?
Well, you've learned over the years to put a lot more feeling into it.
Oh, you want to know how? Hey! What's up, girl? How you doing? I got to raise my, but I know that it matters to her. I know that, and
it makes me smile.
It's ridiculous, but, I'm not sacrificing.
No,
I'm not sacrificing.
Connecting.
Huh?
It's connecting.
It's connecting.
Yes. I want to hear from more of you guys on this.
Do it with an accent, Brian.
Do it with an Irish accent.
Oh, don't.
Right there?
Hi.
You don't want that.
Okay, so
Oh.
we don't argue a lot, but when we do, I'm coming in hot. Okay, it's like we've got an issue, the blood is running, everything is like, and we need to deal with this right this minute and now. So I am like rapid fire, it's coming in, and he has a tendency to get overwhelmed. And initially I wasn't terribly receptive to that. It's like, we're talking now, we're working through it, we're la 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 la. And I had to realize that occasionally he needs to step away, he needs to calm down, he needs to take a moment, and that time in between is super painful for me because I'm like, how long is this freaking gonna take until we can get back into it? But there's no sense in the meantime because it's too much. So we have this agreement, he can step away and let me know when he's ready to come back, and then we come back together, and then I go in again.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And can I just say, and there's this, we think of agreements, there's the relational agreements that we can convey, but there's also the internal agreements, right? We don't talk about that enough. That, okay, what agreement do I need to make within myself so that I can show up in a better way during conflict, just in my relationship in general? What are those boundaries that I also need to potentially create for myself? What skills, what tools do I need to learn? So that's such a beautiful example of, okay, if I keep going, the whole ship is gonna sink, right? But if I can just learn to breathe and regulate and just be patient, I know that we're gonna be able to circle back to this. Thank you.
And I want to build on that too, and what you're saying, because, and also what you said, Miss, about you partnering with someone who's more avoidant and accepting those parts. And Silvy and I have a very clear agreement that when we travel, like since the pandemic, it's been challenging, but I love going to Ireland, getting my cabin and staying there for a month. And I did that before the pandemic. We have an agreement no more than 3 weeks apart. Right? That's an agreement that we've made, no more than 3 weeks apart. And again, I don't know if it's compromise is the right word.
You find something in the middle that works for you both.
Yeah.
There has to be space for you both, right? And oftentimes, when I am working with clients on the anxious and avoidant spectrum, what I do tend to see happen is we start to move towards the person who is able to tolerate less and less connection. And without the agreements, we can find ourselves sometimes, leaning a little too far in a certain direction. And it's a tricky dance because obviously it's scary. We don't want to lose the person. We don't want to push them away. But what I've found that when we don't put those agreements in place, it can make the dynamic challenging to navigate later on. It sets up a little bit of a more challenging dynamic.
Yeah, and it's, again, I think even in the land of agreements where things can still be negotiated. I mean, I can imagine a scenario where you want me to go away for a month. There's...
And I can tolerate a lot more spaciousness in our relationship now.
Right.
Like it's, I think through the years of finding that balance and creating agreements and prioritizing repair, there's, again, with anxious attachment, it's about tolerating more space. With avoidant attachment, it's about tolerating more closeness. So we've really, I think our differences have supported ourselves to grow in the opposite areas.
Totally.
But it wasn't easy.
No.
It wasn't. Any other people? Oh, lots of it.
Great.
Yes, please.
Protection of the relationship from outside influences, like in-laws and things like that.
Yes. Do you want to give an example?
Actually, a few years ago, I actually listened to Stan Tatkin and introduced the couple bubble into the relationship. Just for example, we're planning a wedding, so parents are talking about what they want, all those things, and it's I'm not asking, so.
Yes. Navigating thirds. Stan Tatkin's concept of thirds is so, it comes up all the time in my one-on-one work, and thirds are anything that can be a potential threat in your relationship. It can be anything. It can be a pet.
Children.
It can be a child. It can be in-laws.
Alcohol.
It can be alcohol. So it's anything that can
Hobbies.
feel threatening to the other person, and how you navigate that as a couple, is really important.
I think that alone is also game changing. When we realize, when I was living in France, we had 2 dogs. I'm such a dog person. I was so fucking jealous of our dogs. I was so jealous of our dogs because she would give them so much attention and I would get breadcrumbs and I was starving, but I had no language to communicate it. I had pouting and withdrawal. That's what I had, and meh, that's all I had. jealous of dogs. I grew up with dogs. How's that even possible?
And the thing that makes thirds really challenging is that you can have such different perceptions of it, right? One person can be like, I don't understand why you think this thing is threatening, but the other partner is feeling terrified. And so learning how to really validate and care about and be curious about why that feels threatening for the other person. And again, potential agreements you might need to create, and there is compromise that needs to happen in those moments.
Yeah, even when like addiction isn't necessarily present, alcohol or some substances is so commonly a third. And again, it gets confusing because the one who's maybe consuming is like, well, I don't have a problem, I just drink it. And the other's like, again, maybe they grew up with something, alcoholism in their childhood, or when again, I'm just gonna speaking as a man. When we men drink, we go somewhere, I love you, man. We go into our feelings, or we consciously we get a little fuzzy, and I find that it often feels unsafe to a lot of partners of men that drink, even when it's fun, even when it's not, and so. Being able to honor that is a potential threat, anything, and to then, again, even create clear agreements around, okay, I'm only gonna have one drink, and it's not gonna be liquor, it's gonna be a beer on Friday when we go out. And then honoring that, again, can be a really effective and powerful way of bridging a gap like that.
Creating safety.
Hi, guys. I'm curious. I love that your conversation is about differences and navigating that. And there's been a lot that you guys have navigated together. I'm curious to learn about at what point do you feel like for a couple it could be a matter of just values difference, and that maybe the differences are too many to be able to navigate. Like when do you realize that line needs to be drawn or acknowledged?
I think Terry Real speaks about this so brilliantly. Is there enough in the relationship that makes it worth tolerating the hard stuff? I think there has to be, and I think this is a good carry-on into our third tool. What is the vision you have for the relationship, right? Does what you're struggling with fit into what you're moving towards? Will that kind of vision help tolerate those discomforting, uncomfortable things? And do you want to kind of finish that last part off?
Yeah, that actually is a really great segue. Good catch. I didn't catch that. Good job. So when Silvy and I were struggling in our relationship in those first couple of years, I was working with a coach, and he asked me a question one day that never left me, and it really struck me. And it was simple. What is your purpose for being in the relationship? Was what he asked me. I was like, oh. That's a really great and interesting question. And, I will say that, Silvy and I, we shared a spirituality, you could say. We did break up 4 months into our relationship. And during that time, we were both listening to Abraham Hicks. We had a shared spirituality that was in Course in Miracles. That was, again, kind of, some people have Christianity, whatever. But there's a shared sort of transcendent or transpersonal vision, purpose for being in the relationship that spoke to both of us. There was both a shared relational purpose to grow, to serve, and I had also, my own purpose to be the best version of man I could be. And I just knew at a soul level that so long as she chose it too, being her partner was going to help me like nothing else could. Be the best version, whatever the hell that means, but be the best man that I could be. And it wasn't gonna be easy, but she's amazing. Have y'all met this woman? Like she's an incredible human being. And yes, there were big differences, but that deeper purpose. So we want to put that also on the table, that if you don't know what your purpose is for being in the relationship, and it could be whatever you want it to be. I mean, it could be to raise kids, it could be to build wealth, it could be to worship God, it could be to have companionship. I mean, you get to decide. But that's the third thing that we wanted to speak to, is the importance of I had a young man come into one of my men's groups, 32 years old or so, and he said to me, you know, Bryan, I look around at all these guys in my life and all these couples, and everyone's miserable. Why would I do a relationship? And I said to him, it's a great question. And until you can answer it, you probably shouldn't do a relationship.
And I think to further land and respond to your question is, do you admire those differences? Because I think a lot of times we're choosing someone because of the different values or the different ways of being that they bring. Like, I loved that he was an independent person. I was like, I can finally step into myself and not feel like I'm only thinking about family, and I can spread my wings. I love those things about him. And they were also, of course, the things that were very hard for me. I think, do I still admire the person? Do I still respect the person? Do they care about the fact that I'm struggling? I think those pieces of feeling cared for when you're holding differences. There's this quote, I don't remember who wrote it, but it was, can they be caring towards you even when they can't meet your needs, right? I think that's such an important and beautiful piece. I remember when I couldn't travel certain places, I'm like, I wish I could clone my body and take me with you. Take my, I wish I could do that and not be exhausted and X, Y, and Z. And just being kind through that process. But there's going to be our own personal deal breakers. And it's not always the easiest thing to sort through. I wish it was, but it's tricky.
I guess the last thing I want to share to that too is, because I get asked that question a lot, how do you know when it's just enough? Over the years, I remember two teachers that I'd heard this from two different teachers. Always leave in love. Always leave in love. And I didn't really know what that meant, right? And we can probably all decide for ourselves what that might mean. But what I discovered it meant for me was, I don't subscribe to the 50-50 model of relationship. I subscribe to 100-100. Both people have 100% responsibility for what happens, for the relationship. It's just my formulation of it. Which means do my 100%. Whatever my 100% is, do that. And when I feel like I have done that genuinely, my 100%, not, did you do your 50? Why aren't you doing your 50? I've left my 100% when I'm doing that thing. If I've done my 100% and I'm at a place of like, damn, I've whatever that means, I've gone to the therapy, we've read the books, we've had all the conversations, I've confronted my daddy wounds, whatever it is, but whatever that means to you, if you've done your 100% and the relationship is still just like, this person isn't leaning in. Or it's not, I don't want to make it just about them not leaning in, but like you said, maybe there's just an incompatibility. There's this thing here that is, another distinction I work with is requests versus requirements. Getting clear, what are my requests versus what are my requirements? Relationships come off the rails when we pretend that our requests are requirements or our requirements are just requests, right? So this is a really long answer to your question. I don't know if this is helpful at all, but it's a great question, and it's a tricky one, isn't it?
Well, we're at the Q&A part, so
yeah.
Please bring your questions.
Yeah.
Anything coming up right there in the back? Right there. Perfect.
So in terms of this workshop addressing, equally the interests of the male partner in the relationship, so far in this discussion, my observation has been there was a mention of, where men don't necessarily grieve as part of our culture, but we've heard a lot about, what the women's requirements are in your relationship, not traveling for more than 3 weeks, not living in the mountain, getting checked in with more frequently at when you're on a get-together, calling not just at the end of the night when you're on a trip. But we haven't heard anything about what your needs are in a relationship. And so, as a participant, it's great that I can learn the half of how to meet my wife's needs, but it would also be important that the man's needs are addressed as well.
Okay, thank you for that question. That's easy. Thank you. I can talk about this. Let's go, because I got needs that I didn't know how to talk about.
Also, there was some shame directed towards you because you didn't anticipate how frequently she was to check in. You didn't intend at all to hurt her or to be dismissive,
that's
but
so
yet
good.
you received
Yeah.
guilt for
Yeah.
having not mind read.
Did you feel like I was shaming you when I first brought that
there
up?
Was some,
On the
can you relate
stairs?
to this comment? I was like, yes. And there was, did that make you angry?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, what you
Yeah.
did make me angry was a specific
yeah.
comment because
Yeah.
he thought you were fine. He didn't want you to feel abandoned. If he did, yeah, he should be shamed. But if he was intending to be a good mate to you and just didn't understand your needs, there shouldn't be game. It shouldn't be.
Okay, so
guilt
check
or
this
shame.
out. I hear you. I got you. I get it. How many men can relate to this man's questions? Like, genuinely, like, my intentions are good. There's some shy hands going up. Silvy, you wrote something years ago. I think I've shared this quote even on my Instagram. What is it? That it doesn't, your intentions to not hurt your partner have nothing to do, I'm paraphrasing, but your intentions to not hurt them have nothing to do with whether or not you actually hurt them.
But it doesn't take away a person sharing their hurt with responsibility and ownership. That's very important.
100%. And so my needs, I need to not be criticized. That's a hard no. And criticism, the way I define it, is it's just direction given that is not being asked for. Give me feedback. Tell me the impact on you. Tell me, that's fine. But telling me what I should have done or that's a no-go zone for me.
And it doesn't mean we do it perfectly. It just means that that's something that if I do, I work on really repairing, because that's not nice. I don't want to be criticized either.
Exactly. That 3-week agreement, that's sourced from also my needs. I need to go have my adventures. I need that, right? So I need to know that our relationship will make space, not just make space, but that she will support that, right? That I get to go and do those things. That's my need.
But it's interesting because I had a podcast a week ago and I had a similar question. So I'm fascinated by this.
Well, I think this is why a lot of men they struggle in therapy rooms. Because a lot of men, I think, do get beat up. I love therapy. I have a therapist. We see a therapist. I love therapy, just to be clear. But I think a lot of men feel beat up in therapy rooms. A lot of men feel bullied. One of my closest friends, a couple months ago, told me that one session that he did with his wife and a therapist, he was like, immediately as he felt unsafe and ganged up on. Right? I just think that's so common. And I get it. I have so much compassion for men. I do. I really do. Because we get to have needs too. We get to have boundaries.
I ask him all the time, what do you need? That's something we've had to kind of work on, helping you share your feelings,
Sure. Being
curious about what's happening for you, because that gets so shut down for men. There's condition out of them. And I do think I'm going to say something, and it might be activating for some people, and I think this is an area that women carry privilege, that we have been supported in our expression of feelings, and men have not. I know Bryan's doing a workshop going to be talking about revitalizing masculinity, and, I love when he tells me his needs. It is like, I am like a cheerleader celebrating. I'm like, thank you. It makes me so happy, because I know it's hard for you to say what they are.
It is. And there's another need that I think fucks us men up because we don't know how to speak to it. Again, not that women or anyone else doesn't necessarily experience this. I need for my wife to not tell me how I think or feel. Again, no-go zone. I do not find, you're laughing because that's a knowing laugh, isn't it?
Men aren't allowed to grieve. Men aren't allowed to feel. In general, when they are, they're often minimalized.
Minimized. Well, yeah, we're not allowed. He said we're not allowed to grieve. We're not allowed to feel, and except for anger, and even that, right? We don't know how to do what I call constructive anger. All we know is destructive anger, So that's a really important need, that when we learn how to speak to that skillfully, that's the key, skillfully, that's game changing. But it is key to speak to it skillfully, because it's, you know, but this is the work that we do. I mean, this is why I love therapy, I love coaching, I love coming to conferences like this, because nobody teaches us how to do this skillfully. It is a skill. Relationship is a skill. It's filled with skills. I know you're teaching a skills workshop on Sundays aren't you? Like a sex skill. It's a skill. How many guys? Again, I'm a man, so I tend to speak, more from that perspective. But how many men are just winging it sexually?
I don't think anyone's going to answer that question, my love.
Raise your hand, man. Come on.
You lost him on that one,
I didn't ask for raised hands on purpose. I know what we're doing here.
Any other questions?
Thank you for your question, though, man. I hope that was helpful.
So I don't know that it's so much a question, but I love what you said, that women are privileged in this area, and I think that it's second nature for us to talk about our needs.
Yes.
And I don't know who that man is. I didn't see him, but I love that he spoke up and said that, because I really do think that men just go unheard.
Yeah.
I think that I don't know if it's a lack of courage, or if it's got to do with shame, or like even when you said something and people were laughing, that makes me sad, because I think that men have so much to offer in the form of feedback and what they want and what they need and what they desire, and they just go unheard.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'll share just from my experience. It's an honor for me to witness Bryan cry. And I don't mean that because I want him to cry, but that he feels safe to cry with me. I do not hold that lightly in any way. Because it's this double messaging that men are getting, to be strong and capable and providing in all these ways. And I think the dance of vulnerability for men is a place where we're still evolving into culturally, and we're watching it in real time starting to shift, and it's a messy journey, So thank you for.
Yeah, it's not easy. There's a part of me that never wants to do it.
Yeah.
But thank you for making it safe.
Yeah. Question.
Hi. So you talk about how couples have differences and different needs and different wants and different requirements, and then you talk about these agreements. I didn't know those things existed, but okay, so you have these agreements. How do you make sure the agreements don't cause resentment?
It's a great question. I think it's important to be able to revisit agreements.
Yes.
Just because you have an agreement doesn't mean that that's the agreement from here on out. I think that sometimes it's helpful to make 30-day agreements. I've done that before, especially like when alcohol. I've worked with couples where, again, just 30-day agreement, because making a sweeping agreement. Yeah.
You mean like, how does it look in a practical way?
We have no idea.
Yeah. Should we dance?
Or which one?
I think one of the issues is agreements versus rules, right? So there are rules and then there are agreements. Rules are very rigid. It's yes, no, you can do this or you can't. Agreements are mutual, they're collaborative, and they're based on, of course, your boundaries, and you're not prescribing anything. It's not prescriptive. It's about like your 3-week thing, right?
Yes.
It's what is the issue here and how do we get to a resolution here, not for either one of us, but for the relationship.
That's
and I think
beautiful.
focusing on the relationship helps you figure out how to manage the agreement. What do we both want here for the relationship? What's going to make this relationship work?
Yeah, I like what Demira's pointing to is to make agreements are in service of the relationship, not just my egoic needs and not just her egoic needs, right? My ego just wants what it wants, and everyone else can go fuck themselves, right? That's not relational. My ego isn't interested in being relational, but I mean, I want to create something special with her. So I like what she said. It's interesting. I don't necessarily think of it as, I don't see it, I personally don't see a difference between rules and agreements. Monogamy, polyamory, it's an agreement. We're monogamous. You could say it's a rule, but it's still an agreement. It's not a rule.
Because rules, like you say, agreements, we change agreements. Agreements are, we can change those. Rules are, you have to come in the house by 10 o'clock or else. An agreement is, let's find a good time that you feel comfortable and that I feel comfortable with us coming inside based on our core values. Just like someone else mentioned earlier, how do you make sure, how do you know, like, if this isn't gonna work? And if this compromises your core values, if you don't feel authentic in this, if you're like, you know what, this just isn't me, and it's changing who you are, then that's how you know.
Yeah, I guess I call that requirements. Requirements.
Rules. Yep.
That's the word that I use.
That makes
Same
sense.
thing. Requirements. It's a requirement. Monogamy is a requirement. Right. It's
Totally.
a requirement.
That's the same. Yeah. Totally.
Is this at all helpful? If you're building resentment, then this isn't the agreement that works for you. Bottom line.
And there's a bidding process that happens to kind of find the place in the middle where you're both going to be a little uncomfortable at times, but it's not so uncomfortable, like she said, that you're changing who you are and your core values, but you are making adjustments to accommodate the health of the relationship. And I know it's a tricky thing, and I don't know if we have time to go into a real life example, because I want to hear. Did you guys get to share?
No, I just wanted to.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, because tomorrow I'm going to talk about this actually.
Oh, yay.
I'm enjoying this so much. I hope you're all there tomorrow because I'm going to build on this. It's the negotiations, compromises, and sacrifices are different things. So negotiations are facts of life. Compromises are some I give, some you give, and then for the shared purpose. Sacrifice, you clearly know, either knowingly or unknowingly, you let go of something that actually matters to you. That brings up resentment. And when you have resentments building up, it means that going back to the basics of boundaries. Boundaries, if they are passive-aggressive, they're borders. They're those walls, rules that we're talking about, right? But boundaries need to be communicated lovingly and firmly. For me, for my clients, if they know that they are getting close in that negotiation to that red line, they're becoming passive-aggressive in that even conversation about it, then they are leaving the boundary zone and going to the border zone. And that's a no-no zone.
Beautiful.
So
What time is your workshop tomorrow?
I think 9:20 is
9:20. She'll be there. Great.
We have one over here. Oh, it says shifting gears. I just have a question for you. You mentioned at the beginning your men's work, and I've been lucky to have a partner who's shared with me kind of the modern plight of what men are going through right now. And I guess a question I ask him, but maybe I don't ask the right way, is how can I support him being the modern man and also honor that I am a modern woman?
Interesting question. How can you support him being a modern man? What does that mean to you?
I think what I mean is honoring that I would say roles have changed. Like, I think we've changed and shifted from, traditional. So I understand that his world is very different than it was. I can be going out, doing what I want, making as much as I want, getting a degree, buying a house, all these things that we have been afforded. But how do I acknowledge that with me getting that, I know that's kind of maybe changed how his world looks? How do I honor that in our relationship?
So I'm not entirely clear. Is he in a men's group?
Can I see if I get this right?
Yeah.
Almost like, how do you acknowledge the shifting roles that are present in your relationship?
Yeah, not like who does the dishes and stuff like that. It's deeper.
Yeah.
It's more like, okay, I want to be taken care of in the way that's like supported. I don't need the money, as an example. Like, it's not about that. It's a different perspective. But I also want to honor that he is an autonomous man who has masculinity that's healthy. And I want to help promote that within him. But sometimes what the femininity is doesn't promote that, the wounded femininity. So I don't
Well, I'm doing a
We're
workshop.
talking about this in his
I'm doing
workshop.
a workshop
Yep.
on
Okay,
Sunday,
perfect.
revitalizing
Sunday.
masculinity. Yeah, we'll dive into it.
Perfect.
I think there's such a restriction in the way, I think sometimes the languaging of masculine and feminine roles, and we're in a culture we're redefining so much. I mean, just even me sitting up here speaking next to my husband, and whereas for so much of history, I've been hidden, in my culture. There's so much change, and it's happening so quickly. I feel like collectively we're trying to figure out what to do with all this change, right? It's messy.
Because to some degree, the answer I want to offer you is just support him being the best him that he wants to be, and let go of what that necessarily may look like. If it fits. A lot of men do struggle if they don't make the money that their partner makes. That's a real thing that a lot of men struggle with. Come to my workshop on Sunday.
I think we have one last question over here. Unfortunately, it is probably the last one.
Okay, last question.
It's more a comment, because there were two comments that were made about kind of how men are this sort of stigma of not really allowed to grieve, and I was bothered by those comments because I don't feel that burden, and it's not an egotistical thing. I think it's a matter of really owning your own vulnerability as a man, because yes, I could say that's definitely a much more traditional, old school view. Like my dad was that, right? But I think the shift that we're seeing in society is the breaking out, accepting each other for who they are. And to me, it should not be a gender thing. It's about acceptance of who everyone is and showing your own vulnerability and rawness and that authenticity. So to me, I disagree with those comments because I feel, and maybe I'm fortunate in my work, in my marriage, in my friendships, I have that ability. I own who I am, right? And being vulnerable. And I think that's where the work is on a lot of individuals, and helping break that stigma that the society or old society has put on us.
Amen. No argument for me. I do men's work, so I talk a lot about from the perspective of men's experiences, but nothing applies to everybody. So thank you.
Thank you for being a stand for that. We love seeing vulnerable men in the world. More of that, please. Yes, please. What a perfect way to land. Thank you all so much.
Silvy. We did it.
We did it.
Good job. Good job. Good job. Robin, you're gonna make an announcement? You're gonna make an announcement? Yep, you're on it.
That was amazing, wasn't it? That incredible? I wrote down 3 tools that I'm going to take away into my relationships. My relationship. Only one. I love this idea about grieving your expectations, like bringing, understanding that 69% of our conflicts are unsolvable. I mean, that is like something that's great to remember, right? And that conflict, we're going to learn tomorrow from the Gottmans and throughout this weekend, is absolutely normal, natural, but it's how we navigate those conflicts. So we're going to learn skills on that this weekend as well. Creating agreements to dissolve our differences and prevent resentments. And I can think of agreements that I have with my children, with my partner, that sometimes you're not really, it's how you're behaving in your actions that actually, without talking about the agreements, you have those agreements, right? We have agreements with each other but it's important to talk about them as well. And having knowing what your shared vision and your deeper purpose is of your relationship, having discussions around that. I just really appreciate what you brought tonight and just the people that you are. Just amazing. Thank you. You've given us, both Bryan and Silvy have given us a new lens for love, one that invites us to share power consciously, acknowledge privilege with humility, and honor our partner's experience without losing our own. Your teachings are such a gift to our community. We're deeply grateful you've set the tone for what In Bloom is all about. And we're thrilled that we'll get to go even deeper with you both on Sunday. So everyone here tonight, thank you so much for being here, and have a great night.
Thank you.